Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Silver Sponsor Vendor Hall Sessions. I am here with Carrie Brennan and Dan Craigie from GeoComm, and they're going to be talking about empowering your PSAP with indoor maps from GeoComm. I will let you guys take it away.
All right, thank you very much. Really happy to be here at the Dare to Be Great event. Have been in a number of sessions, really enjoying the content. So let's dive into empowering your PSAP with indoor maps. So just to start, a little bit about GeoComm if you are not familiar with us. GeoComm is a leading provider of public safety location intelligence, serving local, regional, statewide, and military agencies in 49 different states, helping to keep more than 100 million people safe. We have a national reputation as a leading provider of public safety GIS systems that route emergency calls to appropriate 911 call centers, map the call center location on telecommunicators maps, and guide emergency responders to the scene on mobile displays within police, fire, and EMS vehicles. We are also an Esri Platinum provider and a select technology provider for Amazon Web Services in the Amazon Web Services Partner Network. In addition, in 2021, our NG911 GIS project footprint has expanded to include 17 statewide projects across the country. For the past several years, we have been focused on bringing innovation into indoor maps to public safety. And really, that's what we're going to be discussing today. So just a quick overview of what we're going to be covering. Obviously, we'll do some introductions of myself and my co-presenter, Dan. We're going to talk about indoor maps and why now. We're going to talk about getting started on your indoor maps program. And then what are the next steps? At the end, we will have some time for questions and answers, maybe some discussion. If at any time you do have questions, please type them in the Ask a Question dialog box at the bottom of the screen. So let me introduce myself. My name is Carrie Brennan. I am the product manager for GIS content and services with GeoComm. I have about 27 years of experience in GIS. A large portion of that has been spent in the public safety market space as well. I'm very active in NENA as one of the instructors. I also sit on a couple of different work groups. As well, I am the immediate past president of URISA, the Urban and Regional Information Systems Association, which is the professional association for GIS. Let me hand things over to Dan for a moment.
Carrie, thank you. I don't know if I knew what 911 was when you started, and that's a compliment, not saying anything about how old you are. So Dan Craigie with GeoComm, focusing on innovation, including indoor maps, so supporting Carrie with the indoor maps product at GeoComm. Previously was with the state of Minnesota as the 911 program manager, as well the deputy director of emergency communications at the state. So joined GeoComm last year. Really excited about this this product to help public safety. So, you know, why now? Why do we choose 2021 to talk about indoor maps? Well, I think regulations, specifically from the FCC, have a lot to do with it, and we'll get into some other reasons as well. I'm not going to go through every item on this slide talking about what the FCC has done or what wireless carriers have done, or the two main phone manufacturers, that being Google and Apple. But is what you're seeing here is at least a progression. So we're starting in 2015. FCC talks about some new rules as far as wireless location. I don't have to say it, but I'll say it anyways. Historically, wireless location has been poor. It still is, but we're seeing some progress. when we talked about joining Dare to Be Great, this conference, and presenting, we had no idea that just a few days ago the FCC would release information saying that the wireless carriers within 7 days, which is a crazy timeline. So this is, I think that was on the 3rd. This is going to be in a few days now, that they must be delivering the Z-axis location information, so that vertical location information, by June 10th. So accurate location information, specifically as it relates to indoors, is obviously on the minds of our federal regulators and wireless carriers. It's also an important topic, generally speaking. It's not hard, unfortunately, to see news stories of events that have occurred because first responders cannot locate a 911 caller. There's some stats on here. Again, you might know these. 80% of 911 calls are placed from cell phones. Obviously, that can ebb and flow depending on the locality. One interesting one that maybe you haven't heard of is 80% of our entire life, and this is US based, spent indoors, which is actually a pretty sobering statistic, admittedly, and I hope you go outside today just to break that cycle a bit. So knowing that most 911 calls are placed on wireless devices and that the majority of our lives are spent indoors, it's a reasonable assumption to make that a 911 call that's initiated, which are the majority of 911 calls indoors, we don't have a lot of actionable intelligence to assist telecommunicators and first responders in finding a 911 caller. Again, there's a number of news stories out there that you can go out and find, and we aim to change that. So this is GeoComm Maps, one of our mapping applications. And a pretty typical view, actually, from what a dispatcher might see when they receive a 911 call. I myself have never worked at a PSAP or an ECC. My sister does. I'm out in Minneapolis. She works for Hennepin County, the largest PSAP. It's the largest county in the state, and so she works at that PSAP. So she's seen this before. She said, yeah, we'll maybe get a name. We might get some building footprints. Obviously, recently we've gotten some more accurate location information with Rapid SOS and Rapid Deploy, providing device-based hybrid location. So that's a great start. So now with this FCC ruling, we're going to get vertical location information. And on a spectrum of bad to great, we're very much moving to the great. But once we have that very specific location information, what are we going to do with it? As telecommunicators, you're very innovative. You get the job done. So maybe you'll go to Google Maps if your mapping platform doesn't necessarily have store names or building footprints. Say Google Maps doesn't have it. Maybe you'll go to the website for a mall or a convention center and work with the caller to understand, okay, where you are, right? You do what you have to do to get the job done. And we understand that. But let's make it easier. So GeoComm, knowing that those statistics exist, that the majority of calls to 911 are wireless, you're spending the majority of your time indoors, we want indoor maps to be integrated into your operational workflow. So when you receive a call or a text to 911, you can very, very accurately within an indoors environment locate where that caller is. So here's an example within GeoComm Maps. This happens to be the Crossroads Center in St. Cloud, Minnesota, where GeoComm is based. And you can see that this caller right here is being pinpointed to just outside of JCPenney or within Pink. And I can tell you that this location information can get very accurate. I myself tested the solution when we went live with Rapid SOS about a month ago. And in working with the PSAP, they could see the route I was walking in the corridor. They could see if I went into a particular bathroom or store. It was that accurate. Not saying it's always going to do that, but combining the up-to-date and accurate location metrics that PSAPs are now receiving as far as the X, Y, and Z, and pairing it with an indoor map, we feel is a game changer. So, generally speaking, what do we see as the benefits of indoor maps? And this is coming from talking to a number of PSAPs who have implemented the technology, who are interested in implementing the technology, and just know about it. Obviously, it provides better situational awareness for those taking the 911 call, those responding. If you can say they're outside of a particular store versus a general mall, again, that's just a game changer when it comes to providing an emergency response. Not every building is the same. You have office buildings that might be a bit more typical. You have malls, you have convention centers, airports, a lot of rooms that maybe first responders aren't aware that exist, that the PSAP could see, could communicate, or the first responder could have on a mobile app and understand where the emergency is so they can respond more efficiently. And really, what are we here to do? We're here to protect lives and property. And knowing that there's better context, so better location information for first responders, for telecommunicators during a 911 call, we know that we can improve that emergency response time, again, so we can save lives, because that's what we're here to do.
Thanks, Dan. So let's jump into getting started. So the first thing that I want to say is GeoComm is providing indoor maps through our GeoComm Maps platform, and it is available through the Rapid SOS Portal environment. However, our content library needs to be built out. So this is what we're going to talk about getting those indoor maps into your ECC. So what we are doing is looking at prioritizing the building types that are of highest priority in the ECC. What we are seeing from our market research is that schools are of the highest priority at the moment, moving on then to probably government buildings, commercial buildings, large event spaces. So the first thing that you'll want to do is identify the prioritization of the buildings that you are interested in. Secondly, you'll want to identify funding sources to do the data conversion. Typically, a phased approach works. So starting with schools as the example, start with the larger schools, perhaps the high schools, moving then into the elementary schools, start with public schools, then migrate into private schools, work on college campuses after that. We also want to identify and educate our stakeholders based on the impact that indoor maps can have on the PSAP. In the images that Dan showed you earlier, it's very obvious the value of having that additional contextual information in a 911 situation. Understanding that a call is coming from outside of the JCPenney or possibly inside the Pink store is critical. If somebody is moving within, say, a mall situation, being able to see that is also of benefit. So we want to decide what buildings to focus on. It's important to document the number of buildings, the total number of floors that you have as well. And then working with us, we can take a good quality PDF or a CAD drawing in DWG format, do the conversion of those static images into actionable GIS data that can then be consumed. So looking at this particular diagram, this slide, we've got two different types of floor plans in front of us. The one on the left is what we would consider an effective floor plan resource example. So this is a highly detailed plan. It's a PDF of an architectural drawing. It has documented on it where all of the doors are, where locations of the different rooms are, good room labels as well. And then the screen on the right is an example of what we would consider an ineffective floor plan resource. The reason for this is, as you can see, The building is no longer perfectly square on the piece of paper. It looks like it's probably been scanned a couple of times, and when it went through the scanner, it wasn't exactly straight, so it is skewed. When we tie this information directly to the Earth's surface, that doesn't necessarily align up well, and it can skew the inside buildings, or excuse me, the inside rooms within the building. So we want to have the highest quality images that we can. Additionally, we would like information that we consider important to public safety. So during the conversion process, we also want to know the location of fire extinguishers, fire risers, lock boxes, AEDs. We can also map out the location of cameras. Those cameras locations don't have a live link at the moment, but at least you know where the cameras would be. Now, this is another example of a floor chart and diagram. In looking at it, you may think this is a good example of a floor plan. Unfortunately, it is not in this case. Just by looking at the image, we can see with the little bookmark down the left-hand side that this is coming from a PDF. And if you look at where the girls' locker room and the boys' lockers are on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see that that entire side of the building has been compressed. As well, if you look at the bottom left-hand corner of the parking lot actually is not perfectly square. And so in order to keep the room locations correct and avoid any inaccuracies with the indoor maps, a higher quality resource would be requested. That doesn't mean that this is not still a valuable resource. We simply can't use this to convert the data. But it does have the location of all of the fire alarms, extinguishers, and AEDs, so this could be used as a secondary source of information. And then finally, if you have available CAD drawings, this is an example that would work very, very well for us. There's a lot of additional information on this particular diagram. All of the lines with the little red bubbles on the end are not necessary for us to convert into indoor buildings, but our team can strip those off, turn those data layers off, and get down to just the room information in order to convert it into an indoor map set of GIS data. One of the things that we have put in place is an easy access to uploading the data into our system. So we have our gateway where it's a secure login. You can log into it, add in any of your new buildings, and add in all of the floor plan information, and then upload any of those PDFs or CAD drawings into the system. So this works well if you are an ECC that is working with, say, your school district to start with. They have access. We could set the school district up with a login so they can upload the images or the data into the system. Otherwise, you could do it yourself. You may also want to partner with commercial vendors, those people that own the large hotels, shopping malls in your community, and they could also be uploading their data into the system. Again, looking at the information that we can convert, you happen to be looking at an indoors map that is of a school in this particular case. This is being consumed by GeoComm's dispatch map application. In looking at it, we can see that the call is coming from what looks like approximately the pool area. As you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, we do actually have a floor picker And this is an important thing as well when it comes to understanding that that vertical information that you may be getting in the near future. If the call is coming from above ground or below ground, as a telecommunicator, you can go in and toggle on and off the appropriate floor. So in this particular case, the call looks like it's coming from B1, but in actuality, it's coming from B2. So this is the exact same location of the call. It just happens to be on the B2 level. As you can see, you can toggle between all of those different floors. Now, this is what the application looks like within the Rapid SOS Portal. I will say this screenshot is a little bit different in that the Tools pull-down menu is no longer on the bottom of this dialog box. It's actually up in the top corner now. That's a minor change. But as you can see, in the Rapid SOS Portal, a 911 call comes in. We have location information, but again, we don't have that contextual information that is coming in with the call, as in, is there a building there? When you go into GeoComm Maps, not only do we have the ability to display indoor maps, but we also have curated data layers that are important to first responders and to public safety in general that are available. So this happens to be an additional base map that has building footprints on it. So you can at least understand that there might be a building coming from or where that call has been initiated. Within the indoor maps for the Rapid SOS Portal, we can see that we've got the call listed out. The label for this store in this example is not specifically displayed where the push pin is, but it's a store called Ragstock. That device-based hybrid location information coming from the Rapid SOS Portal in this particular case is telling us that we have an uncertainty factor of about 2.5 meters, so plus or minus 10 feet. So I'm pretty confident that the call is coming from that Ragstock store in this case. So when we're visualizing indoor maps within the GeoComm Maps environment, what we're looking to do and what we have done is really focused on public safety. As I mentioned at the very beginning, GeoComm is a public safety focused company. We create and maintain GIS data, products, and services for public safety. That is first and foremost on our mind. We have created a cost-effective way to convert data into indoor maps that is highly appealing to the PSAP. As well, utilizing patent pending technologies, including machine learning and AI, what we are doing is we are able to deliver data back to the ECC very quickly. So depending on the number of floors, once a floor plan has been submitted, your indoor map can be available potentially within hours, not days, not weeks, not months. And again, that really depends on the number of floors, the size of the building. But as well, we have the ability to maintain the GIS data. So in looking at the example that we've got on the screen, this happens to be an athletic facility at a school. And the rooms within this building could change. Now, I'll say this, the interior walls may not change, but the varsity softball room and the freshman football room could flip-flop and become different. We have the ability to enable users to go in and identify those changes. And again, those changes are updated to the indoor maps and pushed back out to the system. So again, they're going to be available in hours or days. And that's an important thing to note as well, is from a safety and security standpoint, if you're receiving a 911 call from a school, in particular if it's from a student, they may not have contextual information, or they may not know exactly where they are. They don't necessarily know that they're in room 208 or that they're in the hallway outside of room 208, but they're in the senior locker corridor. That contextual information can also be added and then updated as well. So going on to the next steps. So as you start to become an indoor maps and location accuracy advocate for your enterprise, you can become an expert in understanding the challenges to be solved and what the benefits are that come out of having indoor maps available to you. The benefits are new and emerging technologies that are going to be in the forefront of the PSAP. For a very long time, we've been talking about next generation 911. And, you know, that's really here today. Indoor spaces is I'll say the next frontier. So what you want to do is, when implementing indoor maps, educate those key stakeholders, review those implementation options, and then promote what the impact is going to be. So again, having the ability to reduce response times, protect more property, save more lives. This is really the value of life that comes from the FCC. There's just simple math associated with it. If you are able to get first responders to a scene faster, it's going to save lives and it's going to be effective. So, what are the impacts of indoor maps? Well, we're talking about better situational awareness, obviously. Not only do you know that a call is coming from inside a school or inside a mall, but you also know that it's coming from a specific classroom or a specific location in the mall. We've got a visual representation for those critical buildings. So not only are you aware of the building footprint or having a static picture, you actually have dynamic GIS data that is interactable with. And then, of course, it's going to improve emergency response times. So why GeoComm? Well, as I mentioned previously, we are a public safety focused company at the forefront of mapping. This is an important thing because public safety GIS is what we do, and it's what we have done for the last 26 years. All of our maps are built within the United States. We can deliver GIS data, not just a picture. So it's not a static image, a PDF of a building, but it is actually dynamic GIS data that can be interacted with and as well can be updated very quickly and very efficiently. We are using patent pending technology, a lot of AI and machine learning that is going in and detecting locations of features on the map. We have an excellent QA/QC team that goes in and makes sure that everything that is on the PDF or the CAD drawing is also visible on the finished product. We have that low-cost solution as well. Because we've got this patent pending technology, we can do data conversion in a matter of days as opposed to weeks or months. And again, depending on the number of floors, the size of the building, that could be as small as hours to do the data conversion. And again, that leads directly into our fast delivery of the solution. I'll say days, but not weeks and months to do the data conversion. It's also very important to note that this high quality data belongs to you. We at GeoComm feel like we are the stewards of this data and that we are merely the hosts of it for you. When you are ready, the data belongs to you. You can take it out of the system. We hope that you would keep it in the system. The reason for that is this data being available is available within your PSAP. If you are a Rapid SOS customer and you have a situation where there is rollover, the PSAP next to you, your neighboring jurisdiction, is taking calls. They are also a Rapid SOS customer. Your neighbor would be able to see your indoor maps inside a 911 call. So one of the things that we try to do, we are very impassioned about, is we're balancing safety and security with breaking down the silos of data. So when a call is made, your neighboring jurisdiction pulls it up, they could see the indoor buildings through the Rapid SOS Portal, but they don't have access to go in at any other time and view the data. So that's where we're balancing our leading edge security with breaking down the silos to the GIS data. We are focused on this being a cloud native solution that has highly available uptime. The information needs to be available when you need it. So that's just really a quick summary of what we are doing. And I'm going to kind of move on to the next portion, which is going to be the questions and discussion point. My contact information is on the bottom of this slide. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. We'd love to connect with you and discuss how to make your GIS data actionable with GeoComm Indoor Maps. With that, I'm actually going to just kind of exit out of the slide deck, I think. And get back to seeing everybody. There we go. So are there any questions at the moment? If you have questions, feel free to type them in the Ask a Question dialog box.
Carrie, thank you for that. One item I was thinking about when you were presenting, I think, was talking about promoting the impact and becoming that advocate. Something that I've encountered, and I'm sure a number of folks on the presentation have encountered as well, is this disconnect within public safety and 911 in particular of the public expectations, but even, you know, local politicians and other municipal workers on how location information is transmitted, right? So not only you're educating stakeholders, but you're really showing them the reality of current public safety technology and what the benefits are, because they watch CSI, they watch 911, they just assume there's all this information, and there's a lot of technology out there. It hasn't been implemented yet, but this is bridging that divide on the public's expectations and what technology is available. So it looks like we have a question, Carrie. I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, we actually have two questions. One from Cheryl in the chat saying, if an agency doesn't have any indoor maps, what's the process for getting those made? So one of the things that we would do is work with you, Cheryl, as the as a local jurisdiction, you have the best knowledge of probably who to contact, who to communicate with. If we use the example of schools as our starting point, working directly with the school district to be able to get those floor plans available, then those can be uploaded into our system and do the data conversion for you, and then make them available both through the Rapid SOS Portal in our GeoComm Maps environment, and then also depending on what CAD vendor you have. If you've got GIS capabilities, we can deliver back GIS data that could be actionable and utilized across multiple groups within your organization. I think it's also important to note that a lot of PSAPs that we have been talking with are considering doing this project as I'll say as a community-focused project, if you will, working with the community, working with other agencies to help with spreading that information, making it available to the most people. Another question that is in the question and answer period or dialog box is, how often do you suggest updating the data? Not all information will come in at the same time. So what is a good schedule to adopt? That is a fantastic question. So one of the things that we are implementing is what we call our data integrity policy. So we all know that there are certain buildings that honestly have not changed in decades. The rooms are exactly the same. You know, a good example might be your local courthouse. When was the last time the auditor's office or the assessor's office moved within the building? They tend to not move a whole lot. Part of the process that we have in place is we do have maintenance and hosting, and that maintenance and hosting enables the designated user at the ECC or the designated person that is responsible for that building to go in as often as they like and make changes to the data. So if a room name changes, if there's a new fire extinguisher or a new AED added, that's the type of stuff that can be quickly and easily updated. Otherwise, what we do is we notify the building contact once a year to say, hey, has the data changed? That's the trigger, if you will, to have them log into our maintenance portal and make any changes. If no changes occurred, they simply notify us that there have been no changes. And then what we do is we update the basically it's like the expiration date in the data set, and then we notify everybody a year later. If we notify somebody that their data hasn't changed in a year, they don't respond back. We try several different ways, several different times to notify them so that they can let us know that the data is still current. If after 5 years that data has not been refreshed at all, then we tag it to say that it is no longer fresh or current, which means that the data is probably 5 years old or older. We don't like to remove the data from the system because it is still valuable. However, it's also important for a first responder to know that they're looking at data that might be 10 years old. So the long answer to that question is we recommend a continuous maintenance process. This is GIS data, just like any other GIS data. It will be continually updated, but we will give you a gentle reminder on an annual basis.
Carrie, good job. In the chat, I'm just sharing a link to a case study that was done with Denko 911 down in Texas. Talks about the value that indoor maps have brought to their communication center, some of the process, their rationale for choosing schools, which in talking again to dozens, if not hundreds of, public safety practitioners, whether they're leading an ECC, frontline telecommunicators and everything in between, schools seem to really be the focus. So I think that case study provides an interesting just kind of perspective on how they went about it. There's some items related to maintenance and how they're getting the data. So suggest folks check that out. We do have a few other questions. Carrie, I think the one item that we're talking about as far as this urgency, you mentioned if we wanted to get started like right now, what's the first thing that you would do if you were in the ECC or the PSAP? What's that number one step to do leaving this presentation?
So I would say the first thing would be to take a look at that DENCO case study, but then also to identify the types of buildings that you want to initially do the data conversion on. Find that champion within your organization as well. Look for funding mechanisms. We do feel that our process is very economical with regards to doing the data conversion. In fact, Dan has done some research in the state of Minnesota. Do you want to mention that, Dan?
Yeah, Carrie, thanks for bringing that up. When knowing schools are such a focus, we wanted to get an understanding on costs and financials, specifically as it relates to per student, because that's how a lot of education funding is allocated. And in looking at the number of schools in Minnesota, both public and private, kind of guesstimating the average number of floors and then knowing the number of students within the state of Minnesota, it really came down to $1 per student to build these floors. Again, providing that situational awareness, ultimately saving lives. You can imagine the number of medical calls that exist within schools. It seems a pretty low-cost solution in that respect. Looking at other IT infrastructure projects, $1 per student to build and provision these maps into the PSAP is Minnesota. And I've taken some time to look at some of the surrounding states and other regions, and that seems to be applicable in other areas as well.
Yeah, so understanding the investment in something like this, and then working with your partners within your jurisdiction. So again, the school boards, your planning and zoning department, if you're looking to do commercial buildings, working with commercial building owners, people that have access to floor plans. That's where you would get the information from, upload it into our secure environment, and we can do the data conversion and data delivery back to you. But it really starts with understanding the value of indoor maps, and then prioritizing which buildings you want to get into the system first. And as I mentioned earlier on in the session, doing a phased approach is often a good way to go. I want to start with all the high schools in year one. I want to do K through 8 schools the next year, and build the information. If you have a limited data set, you still have more than if you have nothing in front of you. So.
Great. Carrie, I don't have anything else.
We do have another question in the chat dialog box. Is there a minimum amount of information that you would recommend? So yes, we definitely need to know basically the building footprint, the number of floors that are in that building. If we're using a PDF, having individualized floors broken down into a PDF drawing or on a CAD drawing, room names or room numbers are all kind of the minimum things that we would need. Contextually, we want to add a lot more information though. So we do want to have the location of AEDs, fire extinguishers, fire risers, all of those public safety features within a building that can be important for first responders. So starting with the building location, the number of floors, the room names is, I would say, the minimum, and then adding those public safety features on would be critical. All right. Are there any other questions at this time? Please feel free to type them in the question and answer environment.
And Carrie, they can also, reach out to you via email, and we can reach back out, set up a one-on-one, have a conversation if there's more information people are looking for.
Absolutely, yes. So, if we don't have any other questions at this time, we'd really like to thank the Dare to Be Great conference attendees. We really appreciate that you took the time from your busy schedules to join us today. Also want to thank Ricardo for providing this opportunity to talk at the conference. Really, we just wanted to focus on the urgency of indoor maps for 911. Again, if you would like more information, as Dan said, please feel free to contact me directly. My contact information is on the screen. And we appreciate the opportunity to talk about indoor maps and making your GIS data actionable.
Thank you guys so much. That was so informational. And you said it in the beginning, we keep talking about next generation 911. It really is here now. And to see all these things come to fruition, it's been very exciting. And it definitely seems like now the possibilities are endless.
Indoor spaces are definitely the next frontier.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you to GeoComm for being a sponsor, and we'll see everyone in the next session.
Thank you. Have a good one.